Hey everyone, and welcome to 3-Minute Racket Reviews. Today's racket is the Technifibre TFight 305S. On to the ground strokes with this one, I'd give it a really high mark of an 8.5 out of 10. I think the directional control is superb with this 18x19 string pattern. It's not the most precise frame on the market, but it definitely gets the job done, and the amount of spin for 18x19 is impressive. Next, on a net play, I'd give this a 7 out of 10. I think the 18x19 helps it at the net, but it's a pretty clunky frame. The beam width here is 22.5, so you are creeping into pretty thick and stiff beam territory. Next, onto the serving with this frame, I think it's exceptional. Give it an 8.5 out of 10 because I just think it's so quick through the air, has great directional control, lots of power. For me, it's something I can feel comfortable hitting really any serve with. Alright, next on to power. I think this is a super powerful frame. I give it 8.5 out of 10. Easy power off of pretty much every shot. Really impressive in that category. Next, to control, give it a 9 out of 10. I think this 18x19 string pattern is really controlled, really consistent. Feels like the strings are spaced out pretty equally in the upper hoop. Next, moving on to stability, I'd give it a 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a really stable frame, and one thing I enjoy about it is that ability to redirect your opponent's pace and hit a pretty controlled, let's say half swing ground stroke or sort of chip shot. Onto a comfort, I'd give this one a 6 out of 10. It's definitely not a very comfortable response. The RAs on this one come in lower than the 300S, which came in around 66. The RA on this one's about 63. I did not feel a difference at all, if I'm being honest with you. Pretty boardy, plasticky feel. Definitely one of the weaker points of this frame. Next, onto the flex profile, I'd give it a middle yoke. It did flex a little bit different than the 300S. Maybe that's just down to the weight distribution. Moving on to touch and responsiveness, I'd give this a 7 out of 10. It is better in terms of touch and feel relative to the 300S that has a 16x19, which I did feel had a lot of hot spots and could really send a volley or a ground stroke if you're being super aggressive with the placement. So for this guy, I'd give it somewhere in the average ballpark of touch and responsiveness because the string bed with the 18-19 pattern helps it a lot. Next, onto our will it lead category, I think this is for sure a good option in a league setting. Just keep in mind it's much lower spin generation relative to the 300S. Even though the molds are both presumably the same, I would definitely recommend the 300S to more people that are looking for this type of racket. Sort of a super powerful 98 square inch frame. Lastly, on to the cosmetics. I'm gonna roast them for a second here. It's pretty terrible. It's all white, just 2 stripes of color, very uninspired. I said the same thing about the 300S, but if anyone's listening to this that works there, I want them to hear it again. Next, I want to thank my buddy Deepak over at Mriva Sports for letting me demo this frame. You can see his information on the screen now and in the description. Thanks everybody for tuning into this racket review. We'll see you in the next one.